Well, hello, everybody. It's an honor to get to meet Dan Plant here at the studio, actually here today on his off time.
Brett, thank you for inviting me. Yes, this is my day off on Fridays, and I always reserve it for events like this. Anytime I'm waiting for Brett to call or text to say, "What are you doing on Friday, man? We want to have you on the show." So he did it, and here I am, and I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your podcast. Seriously.
Well, it's an honor because I have been very happy with the work that you and I have done, and Larry and Sarah, because honestly, I think is awaken people more, and people are now. I mean, just the last couple of days, we've had a huge increase in numbers of people that have watched the film. I think it went up like 500 people since yesterday.
Yeah. So we're talking about, of course, sewage. If you're not aware, we're talking about the Tijuana sewage crisis.
Right.
And
Well, I thought everybody knew.
Your documentary. Yeah, I guess you already knew that. But anyway, it's called The Big Dump.
Right.
And it has had an amazing impact. It really has. And if you want me to talk, I mean, you guys put your heart and soul into this. As you know, I've been covering this story as a news reporter since college. 1984, Brett.
I know.
And here we are, 2024, and it is worse today than it's ever been.
Right. So when you told me this originally, I thought, how can this be? Because you have a strong voice in media. People listen to what you say, but yet here we are, 2024, and you probably were in college around 1984.
That was it. I graduated 84. Yeah. That's 40 years.
So when you said that, I thought, this film has to make some type of impact, because I can't imagine you going the rest of your life and this still being a problem. Or mine. Mine.
No, that's exactly right. And generations. The Congressman Brian Bilbray, former congressman from Imperial Beach. He was also the mayor of Imperial Beach. He was a county supervisor. But his famous saying is, "I'm now working on fourth generation sewage babies." His great grandchildren. And that's no lie. And Brian Bilbray was the one who got the bulldozer and said, "Hey, if the government's not going to do this, I'm going to do it myself." He rented this big, huge front loader, and he started pushing the dirt into the Tijuana River to try to back it up into Tijuana so the sewage wouldn't come in and obviously pollute our beaches. And Brian was also a lifeguard at the time and still a surfer to this day. But yes, that's sort of the epitome of how long this has been going on. Fourth generation sewage babies. And it actually goes back to the 1940s, if you want to follow it all the way. But as the population of Tijuana grows and the sewage system remains the same, it becomes our problem more every single day. I mean, right now, the city of Tijuana has about 3 million people in the metro area. They have a sewage system for about 500,000. Do the math, and the rest of it comes our way. This is a crisis. This is a catastrophe. This should be a state of emergency. And I know a lot of local politicians have been appealing to the president and the governor to declare a state of emergency down here. And not only that, but the effort that you have had through your movie and the schools and the school system is amazing. And when I visited those kids, and we have hundreds of kids on board now, writing letters to the governor, to the president. And as I said in my reports, if they don't listen to the big people, maybe they'll listen to the young ones.
Right. And you know what? That story kicked off 2 more schools. So now we have a total of 3 schools.
Nice.
And so that means we have to move up to the North County now.
Yeah. And you know what I've always said about this as well is out of sight, out of mind, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're up in the North County, you don't have these problems. You go out to your beaches and pretty much everything's fine. The water's clean anyway. They have some sand issues,
right?
And some erosion issues and some crumbling cliffs, that's for sure. But they have clean water as you get around Point Loma. They don't have a problem.
I've heard Encinitas is now is getting sewage.
Well,
I think it's got to be from here, right?
There's different sort of sources of sewage up in those areas, the creeks, and of course there's little sewage pipes that leak and things like that. But the amazing thing is, and you mentioned an interesting thing is, Encinitas has sewage. Let's get after it immediately, right? Let's fix this. Let's trace it and let's track it down and let's stop it. Well, what's been happening down here in the South Bay for the past 40 years? Why don't we do the same thing with the same urgency?
Right.
Up in Long Beach, there was a 5,000-gallon oil spill. They closed down the entire beach for like a week. Exaggeration. It was like 3 days. But I mean, they literally, the first sight of some nasty stuff in the water, they dealt with it. Down here on our border, we're now measuring the sewage in the billions of gallons, not the millions, in the billions. And by the way, the formula when it rains now, and we've had a lot of rain lately, the formula down there in the Tijuana River Valley is for every inch of rain, you get 1 billion gallons of runoff. And if it's coming from Tijuana, that billion gallons of runoff is carrying fecal matter, diseases, heavy metals, chemicals that have been outlawed in the United States for decades. We're talking DDT, not to mention the maquiladoras that the American companies on the other side of the border that are dumping some really nasty stuff because the environmental restrictions over in Mexico are basically non-existent. And so it is up to us in the United States to take the lead on this and clean. If it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen because the United States is going to take the lead. And I have always sort of preached the only way we're going to get this done is through the Army Corps of Engineers.
You said that.
That's how big this job is. Any sort of piecemeal, approach to this is just not going to work. Get in there, carve out the Tijuana River Valley because it's all clogged up with plastic. Some of the river valleys have been grown over by trees. And now when it rains, and if it rains an inch, that's 1 billion gallons, those rivers are clogged up and the river changes direction. And now the farms and the horse ranches are getting flooded as a result. Not just flooded with water. This isn't water. This is water that will kill these horses if they drink it.
Yeah.
So this is a nasty situation down there. And obviously the biggest problem is it's an international situation. And the folks on that side of the border have completely different approach to the environment as on our side of the border.
Right. And not to mention, of course, the air quality. Now we're hearing more and more about the air quality, the an acid rain effect, possibly when it rains, fog. Now with the election,
it's like poison fog. It reminds me of London.
Right.
Back in the 1800s when they had the poison fog, thousands of people died just from breathing the air.
That could happen.
And
here.
down there, well, what's happening here is, and there was a study by a scientist at UC San Diego, very well-renowned aerosol scientist, right? And she studied other, sort of aerosols that are poisoning people around the world. But when the folks from Imperial Beach came to her and said, can you look at the ocean spray and can you look at the sort of the mist that's coming off the ocean and test that and see what are we breathing down there? And what they found out was what you're breathing in the air is the same stuff that's flowing in the water.
Right.
And it's coming up in an aerosol form. And it is just nasty. So it is in the water, it is in the land, and it is in the air. And this is a catastrophe that needs to end. There needs to be a state of emergency. And hopefully, as you rally all these school kids around San Diego, somebody in Washington and Sacramento will finally open their eyes and ears to the longest environmental catastrophe in American history. Let's be honest.
This movie was took a lot of varieties of talent. You were a huge part of the movie. Why it did so well. The coverage that you did, just the trust the public has with you.
Yeah.
Bill Bray being in the movie, Ron Morrison, of course, Paloma from the mayor.
Yeah, Paloma has become the new warrior, of course.
She's really fighting for her city.
Yeah. I mean, she really is. And, Serge Dedina, of course,
Serge was in it.
Was the previous mayor. And
John Duncan,
the future mayor of Coronado, of course, will be there, was in the movie. But Paloma really has, she stepped up. And she stepped up in that she is not backing down from the state of emergency. And nothing short of a state of emergency, quite honestly, will fix this problem.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot of layers of things that you need to qualify for a state of emergency for the state government or for the federal government, but it has to start in the state level, and then the state would appeal to the federal.
Right.
And then if the federal agrees, then we get possibly the Army Corps of Engineers down here to finally do this job and stop the madness, because generations and generations of kids are being poisoned as we speak. The south end of Imperial Beach has now been closed for over 800 days. That is 2.5 years. If my math is correct, it's about 2 years and 100 days. And so that is just unconscionable. Can you imagine anywhere else in the United States of America where the government turns its eye and turns its back on a catastrophe like this? And of course, it's dealing with the Mexican government. This is the most difficult part of this, dealing with a foreign government that really doesn't care. And quite honestly, if you want to look at the flows and how the flows went, during the Trump administration, when Trump was putting up the border wall and Trump was slamming the people of Mexico and doing all those things, guess what happened? Our sewage problem got worse during that entire time.
Really?
It got much worse during that time. If you look at the numbers of sewage, if you look through the years, and you can find this on the internet, you will see that during the Trump years, stuff started flowing down in record numbers like we have never seen before, almost like it was punishment from the Mexican government to say, take this, America.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not America. That is the South Bay of San Diego. You want to punish someone, punish the people in Washington, but they can't do that. All they can do is punish the people in the United States. And there's a lot of people who believe, and a lot of people with good information, who believe that one of the reasons it got worse was because Donald Trump was there slamming and putting up the walls.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So we have a presidency going on, an election in Mexico,
Yes.
and I keep hearing the name Scheinbaum.
Claudia Scheinbaum. Yeah. So Mexico, either way, is going to be historic because there will be a female president, because
Right.
the way Mexico runs their elections, the parties pick their people, and then they decide, hey, you're going to be the next president. There's always an opposition party who once in a while can win, but usually the ruling party, which is AMLO right now, he chose Scheinbaum. So Scheinbaum will probably get in. Now, the interesting thing about her is that she is a Nobel Prize winning environmentalist, was part of a project, an environmental project. So she's aware of the environment. Whether she can work the government and the system to help the environment is another question altogether, because once you get into that office, you start answering to a lot of different sources that want you to do things or not want you to do things, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very powerful cartel forces that control things. They control the entire border. As we know, the cartels control all the people going across. They control all the drugs going across. They control majority of the money.
They are the government.
They are the government. And quite honestly, if you look at how AMLO, the current president of Mexico, treats these guys, I think he said hugs, basically we're going to deal with this with hugs, not guns. And you're talking about the cartel that beheads people for hobby, that kills surfers down in, from OB, from my hometown. 3 surfers just murdered down there by the cartel because they wanted the tires off of their trucks. So this is a very corrupt nation. And quite honestly, Serge Dedina had said to me many times over the years when he was the mayor, he says, Dan, we're getting tired of sending money over there, because every time we send money over there, we have to send more money because the problem doesn't get fixed. We've sent $10 million over to fix the same pipe 10 times. Wow. That one pipe cost us $100 million and it's still not fixed. Well, where do you think that money's going? Where do you think that money's going? It's going to corruption.
Yes, it's being pocketed.
It's being pocketed. And that's the way it is over there. So if Claudia Scheinbaum wins the presidency, and she probably will, and by the way, that election's coming up, I believe, next month.
It's coming up.
It is. Perhaps somebody from the United States can appeal to her about this madness and the longest environmental disaster in American history. Because the truth is, Brett, as you know, it's not just our disaster over here, although the swells tend to go from the south to the north and push it up towards us. But all the people in Tijuana and Las Playas down there are getting poisoned as well.
Right.
But the Mexican government doesn't care to put up signs saying polluted water. They say, come on in, the water's fine. So there's generations of people down there have been poisoned, and they maybe don't even realize it.
Or they don't care.
Or they don't care.
Because they got their own problems going on.
Well, that's for sure. We know the government doesn't care,
right.
But I guarantee you that the good families that live down there across the border,
I'm sure.
They care.
They don't want to complain, though.
No, they don't want to complain,
right.
Because they know the consequences and they know they will get nowhere.
Right. What's your take on all the people that are moving to Tijuana because of the cost of living? And do you think that's going to have an impact on the current situation with the sewage, as far as maybe sinkhole type situations? Because they're building on that old foundation and they're not fixing any of it.
No, yeah, well, the infrastructure down there is absolutely crumbling. There's a lot of new buildings going up as well, but the infrastructure down there has been
changing.
No, it has been crumbled. Here's the problem: is when you build another 500 apartment unit and don't put in the proper plumbing. Well, what do you think is going to happen, right? I mean, seriously, and that's what they do.
Maybe
it could implode. It absolutely could implode. And the other thing is there are entire housing complexes that are going up on the hillsides of Tijuana. Right. You can see them right now.
Yes.
That have no plumbing.
What?
No plumbing. It goes directly into a pipe into the hillside. Some of them have septic tanks, but they are literally building housing complexes that have pipes that go into the hillside that roll down the hill. It is just beyond comprehension. Beyond.
I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to some of the contractors, and they're afraid to talk out loud.
And they can get away with that.
And they can get away with that because they're across the border. Yeah. Yeah. It really is a tremendous tragedy. And we hope that, Claudia Scheinbaum
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, who knows what will be happening in the United States
Yeah,
of
because
America?
that's
I mean,
gonna
Trump could be coming in
yeah.
and then doubling down on the border wall, and that could, stir the hornet's nest again. And Claudia Sheinbaum could say, okay, well, you're going to do that, then we're going to dump you. You never know. I mean, it's politics, right? And we're talking about international relations here. This isn't like if this was a private corporation, if this was, some chemical corporation, I'm not going to say a name, but if some chemical corporation or some auto manufacturing plant that was dumping all this stuff and creating this environmental disaster, they'd be shut down and the guys would be in jail.
Yep. Absolutely.
Period. At the very least, they'd be fined a lot of money, and a lot of lawyers would make a lot of money keeping those guys out of jail.
Your work has been impeccable on covering this story since you were at San Diego State. And just working with you and just everybody in the community has such high respect for you. Everywhere
nice.
we go, everybody that's, they're like, God, he was even in the movie and he cares. And so, we decided that it's time to do an event that honors the human spirit and people that are doing good things just because it's the right thing to do. There's no reason why you're not expecting anything other than the fact you care. And so you're getting the first Storytelling Brilliance Leadership Award. This is decided not.
Brilliance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I don't think I've ever been referred to as brilliant, but thank you.
And Dan's wife out there, please recognize the word brilliance.
Yes, please, honey. I'm brilliant. I feel like I've just arrived at the land of Oz and I have a hat for brilliance. Thank you. Thank you.
But I want to thank you, and Sarah also thanks you, Larry, of course, and Larry's
Sarah, your wife,
and
producer,
and the other, the boss. She's really
the boss, yeah.
But all the other people that are on that board unanimously said you are the one that we want to have that award for all the hard work that you do and continue to do. See, I don't know what San Diego. There's nobody like you anymore. It really tells it the way it is.
No, there isn't. Unfortunately, the media business has changed to the point where there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of lawsuits. There's a lot of fear of offending people. I mean, back in the day, I'm a third generation broadcaster.
And that's another thing too.
My family has been continuously in the broadcasting business for 100 years without a break, starting with my grandfather. 1924 was his first professional job, but he was in the broadcast corps in World War I.
Amazing.
Right. And so when World War I came to an end, of course, he was a great broadcaster and actually ended up, his name was Patrick Henry Barnes, and actually ended up one year, I think it was 1926, winning what would be the equivalent to the Academy Award of radio, because back then there wasn't television.
Right.
So the Academy Awards were given to radio people.
Radio was everything.
Yeah. And it was called the Golden Mike Award. And Patrick Henry Barnes won the Golden Mike Award. My brother Chris still has the trophy.
That's amazing.
At his house in Washington, D.C. My brother Chris is a radio broadcaster in D.C. and also has a TV show on Newsmax. It's called
I like Newsmax.
Chris Plante, The Right Squad. That's what it's called. So so my family's been in this business for 100 years. So it is a little bit, it's painful to see sort of the delusion of the real hardcore journalism in television. Because when I was growing up, we had Bill Plante, which is my father, asking the tough questions of Reagan or Clinton or whoever it was at the White House, because he was my dad. Well, let me just start. So started with Grandpa, 1924, first job, KDKA, I believe it's in Pittsburgh. So here we are, 2024. That is 100 years. My mom was one of the first anchor women in the world, because women really weren't on TV in the early 50s. But because my grandpa became the vice president and general manager of WISN in Wisconsin, he said, hey, daughter Barbara, come on, let's do a show. She just graduated from Northwestern with a theater degree. And by the way, graduated with Charlton Heston.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of my favorite actors.
That's right. Went to school with him, theater class with Charlton Heston. Charles went up to become Moses, and my mom, well, she went on to get her own morning show and have 6 children, 6 boys. And then, of course, all through my father, Bill Plante, 55 years at CBS, 35 at the White House.
Amazing.
So I've seen journalism in its true form. I've been there at the front seat for my entire life. I was in the middle of the 1972, riots in Chicago. It was an amazing thing. And it's a quick story if you have a second. Do you have a second?
This is fascinating.
Yeah. So 1972, I believe was the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Is that Humphrey running?
It was, I believe so. Yes. I don't really remember that much.
I think it was Humphrey.
Yeah. So I was a kid, but what happened was the producers from CBS News in New York said, we got to get all the big wigs over to Chicago and let's meet at the Plant house. Let's meet at Bill Plante's house. So here we are. We're living in Glenview, Illinois, a little suburb outside of Chicago. And suddenly, about 12, 15, 18 hours later or whatever, we have Walter Cronkite sitting at my table. We have Dan Rather sitting at my table. We have a guy named Ike Pappas, who was one of the greatest correspondents. We have my dad, Bill Plante, one of the greatest correspondents ever, and all these producers. And they're sitting around the table making plans on how to cover the riots that are happening in downtown Chicago and would eventually explode. So this is like the front seat where I have been for my entire life. And as I see the whole business getting watered down, it really is depressing. There's still some areas where you can be honest, you can be truthful, you can say things, and this is one of them.
The sewage
Well,
podcast.
yes. This is one of them. This is one of them where you can be honest and you don't have to worry. You know, I mean, we don't want to say swear words or anything like that. But there's just a level of fear now in media that they're afraid of offending and they're afraid of lawsuits, and that is driving everything. Back in the day, we would, you know, the news directors would say, go out and get them, you know, and in fact, up until recently, they'd say, where's the anger today? You know, where is, go find the outrage and let's correct this stuff. Let's actually have an impact in our community. But instead, it's driven by press releases and, you know, pre-written things from politicians who have an agenda, and somehow the media, in many cases, I'm not going to say in all cases, but in many cases, just buys into this, I call it the politician press release podium news, the PPP. And if it doesn't have a podium, a press release, or a politician attached to it, they don't want to do it.
True.
And it's like the original journalism and say, hey, I got something like hey, I have an original story here. And if it's not on a press release, they don't understand it anymore.
That's right.
They don't understand it. So if you go out and try to do original journalism, you have to sit there and convince people that this is actually a story.
Through a press release.
You put out your own press release. That's what we should start doing, putting out fake press releases, sending them out to media so I can cover my stories.
Actually, I think they're going out in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, things have changed. Things have changed for sure. And, you know, there's the independent voices are, if there's any left at all, they're slowly but surely.
Well, you're very valuable to San Diego.
Well, I'm always going to remain the independent voice.
Good.
No matter what.
You should.
And, you know, face the consequences.
Yeah. No,
so far, the consequences have been, hey, wow, he's a really good voice for this community. We really value him. But under certain.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. There comes to a point. Sometimes people's like, oh, wait, that's too much truth. That's too honest. I don't want to hear you speak plain English. Go back to the press release, please. Let's go to the talking points, shall we? No,
that's not you.
That's not me. It ain't me, babe.
And that's why.
Whoa. It ain't me, babe. Yeah.
And that's why you are one of our leaders, because a leader stands out from everybody else. Doesn't take the easy way.
Hasn't been easy.
Slings and arrows.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah. Well, you think of, you know, if I was a spoiled network news correspondent, you know, son, just had everything handed to me on a silver platter. That wasn't the way it was.
Nope.
And the truth is I never picked up the phone to ask for his help once.
You hear that?
Never once. Now, his name probably helped me.
Yeah.
Where they said, oh, are you Bill Plante's son? And at my first job, for sure, it was in Midland, Odessa, Texas. I moved from San Diego, graduated from San Diego State, and drove to Midland, Odessa. You talk about depressing. Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
Maybe it's changed.
Well, Midland, yeah, it's gotten worse. It's gotten, although
they have sewage too.
Yes, it comes out of the oil wells. So the Midland, Odessa was an interesting place, actually. Was because, I mean, where else would you start your first job and then after 6 months be the weekend anchor? And so I was weekend anchor after 6 months, only because the weekend anchor who was currently doing the job forgot to go on the air at 10 o'clock. And for 10 minutes, there was that little thing on the screen that said, you're watching KOSA TV, your eyes on the Permian Basin. And that went on for 10 minutes. Finally, the news director gets in his car and he drives over to the station because he lives about a mile away. And he looks and he's like, Michael Martinez was the anchor. And he's sitting there at his typewriter, still writing the show. He forgot to go on the air. So finally he gets on the air and literally is like putting his tie on. John's like, get out there. He's like, he's sweating and he's got his tie on and he does the show. Next day I get a call from John McCall, my news director, saying, you're the new weekend anchor. Just make sure you get there on time.
Yeah. And fix your tie.
And fix your tie. I never had a problem with that, the tie. My tie was always straight.
These are
so I want to thank you though. I mean, because, and I will say this about these awards, a lot of people have the Emmys and then, we have journalism awards and whatever, I've gotten my fair share, but recently the community has been reaching out to me and saying, thank you. And that means more than any industry award will ever mean to anyone. Maybe not if you're an egotist and you like the shiny trophies and that's, what you live for. But what I live for is to help my community and to be a good person and to try to make a difference, not to get the trophies. And so having an award from a community like this means more than anything that you could ever possibly imagine. Seriously.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And not degrading any awards like the Emmys. Yeah. I've never won one. I know you've won probably many, but at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to think about how many Emmys you won. You're going to think about the lives that you touched.
That's right.
And Dan Plante, you have touched many lives. You're awesome.
God bless, buddy.
That's why he's one of our top leaders. So the event is Monday, the 20th. It's scrolling. Okay, good. Sarah's already on top of it, scrolling it.
Yeah, man.
We have some amazing individuals that are on that list.
There are some amazing people. Some people who have fought, and all of these are the sewage fighters, right?
There's a variety of them.
Different leadership awards.
Yeah, I mean, like
but a lot of them
Summer
are.
Steffens is a good person, and
can't go wrong giving the DA an award.
She deserves it.
Yeah, she does. She's done some really good stuff over there. And the one thing,
she's fighting that $950 a day thing. She got 1 million signatures for that to offset that. Still $950.
Oh, you're talking about Prop 47.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in California, if anybody's watching this outside of the state of California, it is currently legal basically to steal $950 worth of stuff and walk out the door. You'll get a ticket and a notice to appear if they catch you. But unfortunately, nobody bothers to catch you because the people working behind the counters are afraid of thugs and punks and criminals. So what's happening in the state? Places like Target are leaving. Places like Walmart are closing down. The losses that some of these stores have reported just from theft in California. Dollar Tree closing down, right? I mean, you can go in there and you could get like an armful of stuff and only be $100. You'd need to go in 9 times to get $900 worth of stuff at the Dollar Tree. Seriously. But people are afraid, man. So Prop 47 is a ballot initiative. Hopefully it'll make it. You only need like 650. We got 950. So it'll qualify no matter what. And this would basically lower that threshold. So you can only steal $400 worth of stuff, and up above 400, it becomes a felony again.
Yeah.
Because if it's a misdemeanor, the criminals know that the cops don't care.
I wonder why the governor was so supportive of the bill in the first place, and why he wouldn't be more supportive with getting signatures. He seemed like he didn't really want to get involved.
You'll have to ask him that. But there.
It's the first time during the interview you blushed, by the way.
Well, I don't want to say something that'll actually get me in trouble, because I have an answer. But
anyway, so again,
yeah, I mean, he put it this way: the simple answer on that, he tends to side with the criminals and the crooks instead of the good, hardworking people. And now is actually asking. We went from a $98 billion surplus after the coronavirus, $98 billion, okay, to currently a $60 billion deficit. And this guy, as he's over at the Vatican right now, trying to pump up climate change with the Pope and, basically running a shadow campaign for president, where the Democrat Party now is saying, is this the guy we really want? Oh my God, the ego on this guy is tremendous. And if California is the example that this guy wants to bring to the nation, forget about it. I mean, look at this place. We had lost an entire congressional seat during the last census report. That's 525,000 people. Since then, another 500,000 have left. We're going to lose another one. Am I getting the rap?
I think we need to do another show.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot left in Dan Plante, and I look forward to
we just scratched the surface, pal.
I know. And I can't wait to see the book and the documentary.
Well, you made the documentary, and that's why we're here. The Big Dump, baby.
Let's do another one.
Let's do another one.
Another film and find. we need to make movies. By the way, I think the film got nominated. Was it by KPBS? Was it today?
Yeah.
Are they the ones?
Well, it won the Coronado favorite
Something
film.
happened today.
Something happened today.
Yeah, I think best documentary. It's in the category.
And it should be. And it should be. You know what I told you earlier?
I appreciate it.
This baby's got legs.
It does have legs.
This baby's got legs.
It does.
Yeah, man.
Okay, everybody, take care. And hopefully you can attend the event. Everybody take care.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Sarah. Peace.